Hello and welcome. My name is Biagio Mazza, Pastoral Associate at St Sabina Parish in Belton, Missouri, and I'm here to welcome you to another Do You Know series question. Today's Do You Know question is, do you know the story behind the origins of the St Sabina legends? On August the 29th every year, we celebrate the titular feast of St Sabina. From what we know today, there's no verifiable evidence that she ever existed. Devotion to her really started from the earliest devotion we know is roughly from the 6th to the 8th century. Nothing was known before that. And what developed was a legend that focused around an aristocratic widow named Sabina who had a Syrian slave, Christian slave, named Serapia. Now, Serapia had converted, actually, Sabina to Christianity, and together they performed good works and were model Christians. Soon, Serapia, the Syrian slave, was denounced as a Christian and was beheaded on July the 29th, possibly in the year 119, or maybe in the same year that St. Sabina was martyred. But what we certainly know is that upon her death, Sabina interred her bones in the family mausoleum. Soon after, sometimes a few years or sometimes a month later, St. Sabina herself was denounced as a Christian, and she was killed, martyred, beheaded under the Emperor Hadrian, roughly, supposedly, on August the 29th, at the year 125. Supposedly, in the year 425, roughly around the year 425, her relics were supposed to be taken from where they were to the brand new church that had been built on the Aventine Hill in Rome, and that was named after St. Sabina. And so that's all that we know at this point with regards to the legend. From what we can tell at this particular point, interesting enough, the early church was dedicated both to Serapia and Sabina. But from what we know today, and much of the discovery with regards to the legends of the saints, there's actually no verifiable or foundation or historical evidence for any of this. What is the possible background, therefore, to this origin of the Sabina legend? Well, it seems that most likely in the late 300s, when Christianity had been made the official religion of the empire, many of the aristocratic people turned to devotion to Christianity, and a family that had the name of Sabinus or Sabina donated land to the Bishop of Rome. They donated land and a house or estate on the Aventine Hill in Rome. And typically, what common custom was that the donor of the land and so on would be the name that was given to that house, church, or to that land. And therefore, the house, church, and the land was named after Sabinus or Sabina, which was the family name of the particular family that donated the land and the estate. We know that under the reign of Celestine Celestine I, roughly in the year 422 to 432, the beautiful basilica was built on the site of this donated land that was associated with Sabinus. And it was built by Peter the Presbyter. How do we know this? Because to this very day in the church in St. Sabina in Rome, there is an inscription there. And I'd like to just read that inscription to you of Peter the Presbyter. It says, "When Celestine held the highest apostolic throne and shone forth gloriously as the foremost bishop of the whole world, as presbyter of the city, Illyrian by birth, named Peter, and worthy of that great name, established this building at which you look in wonder. From his earliest years he was brought up in the hall of Christ, rich to the poor, poor to himself, one who shunned the good things on life on earth and deserved to hope for life to come." So that is an inscription that exists to this very day in the church of St. Sabina in Rome. So what we do know that by the early 500s, this church that had been associated with the family name of Sabinus now becomes associated with a saint known as St. Sabina. And from the 6th century on, from the 500s on, what you end up having, a legend develops, which we described earlier. A legend develops around this aristocratic widow, Sabina, and her Christian slave, Serapia. What we do know that they projected this legend into the early church and the early martyrdom under Emperor Hadrian, and roughly in the 2nd century. But what we do know is that a church to this very day exists in Rome called, in the Italian name, it would be Santa Sabina. It still exists to this very day. It was renovated several times in order to preserve the pristine, one of the earliest examples of late antiquity churches, simple and direct and beautifully pristine. In the 1222, Pope Honorius III gave the church and its building to the Dominicans, St. Dominic and the Dominicans and so on. And that church has become the mother church of the Dominicans to this very day. As a matter of fact, Thomas Aquinas himself lived there and taught there for a while. The basilica today is, as I said, this best example of late antiquity architecture, and it's really worthwhile viewing. There's a beautiful YouTube video, which we'll give you a link at the end, with regards to looking the inside and what the St. Sabina looks like today. The basilica is really known for several things. One is a large wooden door that has over numerous biblical panels, biblical sites from both the Old and scenes from both the Old and the New Testament, and it touts the earliest depiction. One of the panels has the earliest depictions of the crucifixion of Christ. The other special thing is that with regards to St. Sabina, that the earliest, from what we could tell, under Pope Gregory the First, who died in the year 604, he set up the tradition that Ash Wednesday would be celebrated at St. Sabina, the stational church of St. Sabina. So to this very day, popes celebrate Ash Wednesday at St. Sabina, and it becomes a focal center for the beginning of Lent. So even though we do not know, much or anything at all about St. Sabina Serapia, what we do know, despite the fact that this is a legend, what we do know is that they became to symbolize the Christian dedication to evangelization and to good works. In other words, they become to symbolize model Christians, along with the faithfulness to Christ and to the love of God, that they were willing to give all, even their own lives, in order to be these faithful witnesses to Christ. So that's a bit of the story behind the origins of the St. Sabina legend. I hope you'll return again as we continue to explore our lived traditions in our faith. Thank you very much.